So, hi there. My name is Gabor. I'm a senior front-end developer at a company called Green8 Group. And a couple of sprints ago, we had to start a new project, which is an administration user interface for handling the translation, because we are building many platforms. And these platforms are not only in Dutch, but you can find that around the world. So we needed a nice user interface for this stuff. And I came from an Angular.js world, and in this company we are using jQuery, Hogan, and a bit obsolete stack. We want to change this in the future. And in this project, I wanted to pick up something what we can use in upcoming platforms. So of course we have to come up with some criteria. What are we going to use? So many criteria, of course, but I collected the most important stuff. So as I mentioned, we have many existing platforms and existing solutions. So we wanted to use a technology what we can use without compiling the code. So just a single script tag in the head or something like that. This is also good to mention, is sometimes we have to work with other teams as well, so they have to understand what are we doing. One of the most important criteria is documentation and the community. I really like good documentation, and it's unfortunately it's rare in my opinion. But if I'm curious about something, I would like to go to documentation and I find my answer here. If it's not the case, then you need a good community who can help you. And these two things are really important when you want to pick up a solution. Also really important criteria to easy to learn. In our company, I'm the only one senior front-ender, and we have 3 juniors, including really juniors. So I don't want it to pick up something which is really fancy, but something super unique, and it takes weeks just before starting working on that. Another important stuff is how you start the project. So instead of working days on your Webpack file, I just wanted to come up with something really simple and just do the development instead of playing around with the configuration. So the selection process was, here the 3 final guys are Angular, React, and Vue.js. And at this point, I wanna, Vue.js has a really good comparison site on the official page. You can take a look. You can find that Angular, React, Polymer, and all this kind of stuff. So I think it is a good idea to take a look there if you are curious. What are the differences between Vue and other frameworks, libraries out there? Okay, so because I came from Angular.js, as I mentioned, from version 1, my first idea was, okay, let's take a look into Angular 2 and above and what it can give us. So I find Angular is really heavy. If you want to use it just not as your main library, but next to some other one, then your application or your website is going to be really big. You have to include a lot of scripts, and this is not what I want. And the syntax of Angular is not easy for juniors. You might see in the template language of Angular full with some strange brackets there. So that makes sense, the binding stuff, but this is really difficult for the juniors, and it's something what I don't want. So in the end, the conclusion is in Angular 2 and above, the juniors have to learn many new things just before they can start working on something. The next idea was React, and that's not that heavy like Angular. But the problem is pretty much the same. So you have to imagine a situation where you have juniors mainly experienced with basic web stuff like HTML, CSS, jQuery, and ES5 context. And if they have to work something like that, what you can see on the screen, then it's not that easy for them, not that straightforward. And on the top of React, you have Redux, and again, that's something a bit complex for non-experienced developers. So I moved to Vue.js, and what I found there is really promising. That's a really good documentation there, so you can find really good examples there, really good explanations there, and there's an official style guide as well, which is pretty cool. And why it is so cool is they are not just saying, hey, you should do things like this, but they also explain why you should do it that way. So that's really, really good. They have a really nice community. There's a nice forum. You can ask whatever you want, and they will answer pretty quickly. Also in Stack Overflow, of course. And starting a new project is pretty simple. You can do that, just include the script tag and you can use it. Or there's a really nice command line interface, official, and that's just one line of installation command, and you get everything what you want basically. Linting, end-to-end testing, unit testing, all this kind of cool stuff. And it's pretty easy to learn. There's some screen from the official documentation. I think it's pretty straightforward. So a conditional rendering, an event handler, and just looping through something. It's something what you don't really have to explain. It is pretty straightforward. You take a look and you immediately know what it does. I think that's quite amazing. So we started to use Vue.js just a couple of sprints ago. It's 1-2 months what I'm talking about in this project, and my experience so far is pretty cool. It's a really nice thing. It's for experienced developers is yeah, I can repeat myself. It's really straightforward. You can go pretty quickly, pretty easily with them, and also for juniors, they can work pretty quickly. They won't stuck in, hey, how this stuff should work. They can just do work. And having single file components is something pretty cool. So it's, if you don't familiar with the idea, it's just one file for one component. You have the template there, the scripts and the style as well. And if you're using the CLI and single file components, you can easily use Pug instead of HTML. You can set it up just an attribute. And you have to install with npm, and you have it. You can use TypeScript if you want. Again, just an npm install and an attribute. And basically, you can use whatever CSS preprocessor you want, like CSS, post CSS, whatever. Again, really easy to use and gives you a lot of freedom as well. As I mentioned, really good recommendations what you can find in the style guide. But besides this, it's still the entire approach is really flexible. You can use your own style. It is not, they don't force you to use one way like Angular does, in my experience. So that's super cool. And what I found also really useful in the daily job is tracking the data flow. Where do you get the data? So passing data from component to component. It is really easy to track. You don't lost in, hey, where is this data come from? You can just pass pretty easily from parent to child. Or if you have deeply nested components or some complicated case, you can use Vuex, or I don't know how to pronounce. I just asked some other guys in here and no one knows how should we do that. But basically it's state manager, similar to Flux, but not that complicated like Redux. Again, really straightforward. So after a few weeks of experience with Vue, I can say this is something pretty nice and really easy to learn, easy to work with that in a daily job. So if you didn't do that, then you should give it a try. And yeah, so that's my experience with Vue.js. That's all what I wanted to say to you. So thank you so much for your attention.
Anybody else that's just started with Vue introduction? Seen some hands that people. So I'm curious about your experience on it. If you want to tell us about it.
Well, I've only just started with Vue with like 3 weeks ago, and before that, in a hobby project, I did React, and I felt that Vue is a lot more free, and that's why you get bad decisions. At work, we used two-way data binding, which is a very bad idea. But it's also that Vue they deleted two-way data binding, which is a good thing. But then they decided, put it back in. That's a horrible idea. Please use State Manager for that. And also, I found that React, some smart guy, they made container components and presentational components, which is a really good idea. I just haven't found a way to mimic that in Vue. So for now, I don't have a strong opinion on Vue just yet, but I would still, I'm sliding towards the way that React is slightly nicer. But I'm new, so who knows?
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned right at the beginning that you wanted to avoid compiling code. Can you elaborate on why? And it sounded like in the end that you ended up with something that you needed to compile, like a single file.
Yes. Yeah, so in this current project that we're working now with Vue, it's a project from scratch, and this is where we have the freedom to compile the code because this is an internal project. But as I mentioned, I wanted to carry this knowledge to the upcoming platforms, and we have to also maintain the existing platforms as well. And if we have to use, or we want to use VueJS, then, for example, an existing platform, I cannot, or I don't want to build a compiler for that. I just want to include the script tag, and now I have the freedom to use VueJS just to come up with a new component, for example, or a new page. So this is the reason basically for existing platforms. But yeah, of course, on the upcoming platforms and then the current project, yeah, definitely, I think why not use ES6 if you can, and all this kind of amazing stuff.
Absolutely. Have you used Nuxt for by any means, or?
No.
Okay.
No, I have no experience with that.
Interested in their experiences.
I mean, the server-side written.
Yeah, Nuxt is like a starter boilerplate for for Vue.
Yeah. Well, I used it just to test another plugin which I was developing, so not that big of an experience.
And you compared React plus Redux together, which I think kind of makes it obviously too complex for juniors.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd say if you would compare it to React only and use set state at certain places, that would make it a whole lot less complex for juniors to cope with.
Yeah, that could be a reason. Well, the thing is, one of the juniors, he used to learn in some sort of online stuff, React and Redux, but he was completely lost in that.
I can imagine.
And another guy in the company, he also had the same experience. He was also a junior meteor guy, and he was also, yeah, React was okay for them, but Redux is where he completely lost.
Yeah.
And he took a look into Vuex, and he found it way more simpler, and it's still manages your state. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the point. Why make it something complex if you can do it simple?
Basically, you can just take Vuex and give it to a day-to-day jQuery developer who's like totally mad at dependencies and state conflicts that like solves like it's like a paradise. They see something.
Yeah.
It's very easy and it's much less boilerplate than dependencies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any questions? I'm done.
Well, thank you, Gabor.
Thank you.